Eden, God's magnificent outdoor automatic healthcare system. This is part 1 of a 3-part series. This one's called The Healing Soil. The dirt. Just the dirt. Imagine that. I've created a presentation just on dirt. Hear myself. Anyway, all right. Before we talk about the soil, we need to outline those basic Eden healing principles. These principles prevent and reverse disease. And those principles and agencies I'm about to talk about are so very simple, easy, restful, and serene as compared to pharmakeia. And I'm going to present these principles just as showcased in Scripture before the fall of man. All right. Number 1, and it's so simple. Live, work, and sleep outdoors. Number 2, full body sunlight and air exposure. Remember, God placed Adam and Eve in the garden, in the sunlight, all day, every day, naked, to absorb those automatic healing agencies of nature. Number 3, tend a garden. Fresh from the garden. Eat a plant-based diet, fresh from the garden. Adam was told to care for the animals, not eat them. Drink and use pure, cool water. Work when it's light, sleep when it's dark. Live chemical-free, live low stress. Number 10, walk barefooted. And yes, that is a healing principle, which we will explore in just a bit. Number 11, rest on the Sabbath. Talk with God daily. Be someone nice. Don't consult with snakes. And yes, that is an actual healthcare principle that was demonstrated all the way back in Eden. Number 15, whatever prevents disease also reverses disease. Number 16, healthcare is automatic when we are in harmony with Eden principles. God has given us many other detailed health principles, but these are the basics of Eden. I'm not going to talk about each one of these, just the outdoor components. All right, working with the earth or the soil. Now, since this is about the Garden of Eden, we start with the garden and the very earth in which it grew. To Adam and Eve was committed the care of the garden, to dress it and to keep it. Genesis 2:15. Though rich in all that the owner of the universe could supply, they were not to be idle. Useful occupation was appointed them as a blessing to strengthen the body, to expand the mind, and to develop the character. We need to be farmers. In this presentation, we're going to try to unravel 4 little mysteries. 2 of them are remarkable healing stories of history, and 2 of them are remarkable inspired quotes from history. All 4 are related to healing from the soil, okay? Our first mystery story, what would happen if violent, uncontrollable, hardened prisoners were set to work outside in a garden, in the sunlight, in the soil, all day, every day, like Adam and Eve? All right, here's a video clip of that story. Tell me if you can't hear it. Hopefully it'll work. Here we go.
Former Warden Reagan of Stateville Penitentiary in Illinois was a great believer in horticultural therapy. He was a guest on my TV gardening program on several occasions to tell of the work done by the inmates of the penitentiary. I also visited him on several occasions and was amazed by the beautiful gardens within the prison walls and also the very extensive prison farms. Warden Reagan stated on many occasions that it was only through horticultural therapy that he was able to rehabilitate some of the most extreme psychological cases, making them actually eligible for parole. He said that other forms of manual therapy, including painting and sculpture, done indoors did not have the same beneficial effects. Maybe the results of the horticultural therapy were purely psychological in getting the men closer to nature and working with flowers. And maybe getting them outdoors into the natural sunlight may have been a very important factor, especially when consideration is given to how poorly the average jail cell is lighted.
Hey, now you're speaking at the same time. Yeah, sure.
What? What happened? What are you saying?
No, but you were speaking when he was speaking. So, but now, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, just now in the end. Just now in the end.
How very strange. There must be some sort of lag.
Yeah, but we got what he was saying, so that's fine.
Okay, I'll learn that. This is a bizarre little thing. All right. The mystery that we're going to try to unravel is how would flower gardening make such a dramatic change in temperament? Was it just sunlight and fresh air? All right, we'll come back to that question, but let's present the other three mysteries first. Next mystery story, a dying woman with a relentless, ceaseless cough meets the soil. She says, I know by experience the value of an outdoor life to those who are sick. Years ago, when living in Battle Creek, it was thought that I was dying. My friends said to my husband, Brother White, your wife will not live long. Yes, he answered one day, she would not live long if she remained here, but she is going away with me today. Accompanied by my son, Willie, we started in a phaeton for Greenville, 80 miles north. As I could not sit up during the journey, I knelt on two cushions placed on the bottom of the phaeton. That's a carriage, by the way, leaning my head on my husband's knees. After reaching Greenville, my husband took me out to a strawberry bed and allowed me to work in the soil. He arranged everything for my convenience and brought out an easy chair. I was to set out the strawberry plants. This exercise in the open air seemed to take the poison out of my system. For some time, I had coughed almost constantly, day and night. It seemed as if it were impossible to cease coughing. I could sleep but little. But after beginning to work in the soil, my cough left me. Beginning to work in the soil. Although this outdoor exercise was the only medicine I took, I was rapidly restored to health. You ever heard of such a thing? How? She could barely move. We could hardly call that exercise. What all was in play with her rapid healing?
I want to ask you a question. Did you ever try that yourself if you were coughing to go out in the ground?
I haven't had a cough like that to do that. So no, not yet. It's a good question. And now we add those two mysterious quotes by one of the world's most prolific health reformer and author, the same lady whose story we're just now reading about. All right, here's her statement. This is an old statement from 1905. Everything at Loma Linda is fresh, wholesome, and attractive. The patient could live out of doors a large part of the time. By outdoor exercise and working in the soil, men and women will regain their health. Drugs will be discarded. And that is the Loma Linda Sanitarium and College in 1905. And now the last mysterious quote. She says, tell those who are sick that if the hosts of those who are dyspeptics and consumptives could turn farmers, they might overcome disease, dispense with drugs and doctors, and recover health. Again, how? We know that consumptives, or tuberculosis, were cured by sunlight and fresh air during the war on TB. But dyspeptics? Dyspeptic is defined as of or having indigestion or consequent irritability or depression. Consumptive means tuberculosis. So how would working as farmers in the dirt solve indigestion, irritability, depression, and tuberculosis? How did that woman recover so quickly from her cough when she started working in the garden in the dirt? How did working in a garden in the dirt change the temperament of hardened prisoners? All right, we know sunlight, fresh air, and exercise are powerful healing agents. Yes, but is there more to it? Something more down to earth? Pun intended, thank you. The two stories and the two quotes seem to suggest that the dirt itself may have healing qualities. Is there evidence that our health and well-being are connected to the soil? Well, what's in the soil? B12 is in the soil. What does that do? Well, let's find out. According to the Mayo Clinic, vitamin B12 plays an essential role in red blood cell formation, cell metabolism, nerve function, and the production of DNA. Food sources of vitamin B12, they say in this article, include poultry, meat, fish, and dairy products. But in God's Eden healthcare plan, poultry, meat, fish, and dairy products were not at all ever considered food sources. That was not God's plan. So where did God intend that we obtain our vitamin B12? Well, we have been told throughout the years by various medical experts that vegans must take man-made B12 supplements in order to survive. That's what our man-made theory says. Well, the following slide contains a few key excerpts from a very complex MIT article on B12 on the Earth. It begins to give us clues that may address the question of where did God intend that we obtain our vitamin B12. Just 4 little quotes. Here they are. This is from MIT News. MIT biologists solve vitamin puzzle. Really? Okay, what's that mean? Number 1, vitamin B12 is the only vitamin synthesized exclusively from microorganisms. Okay, so far that doesn't mean much. Number 2, B12 is produced by soil microbes. Okay, now it's beginning to make more sense. That live in symbiotic relationships with plant roots. We know where this is going. B12, the most chemically complex of all vitamins, is essential for human health. Quote number 4. Still to be explored is the question of why soil bacteria synthesize B12 at all, Walker said. Soil microorganisms don't require B12 to survive. And the plants they attach themselves to, well, they don't need it either. Well, this was left as a mystery to the author. So you and I together would be thinking, would it be far-fetched to believe that God placed vitamin B12 in the soil for us? Could it be that we are rewarded with health automatically when we work the soil? We don't even have to think about it. Okay, now the next slide is another puzzle piece with B12 on it. Maybe that will help fill in the pictures, and I believe it will. I had an elderly nurse tell me recently that she was at a lecture a long while back at from a Dr. Harding of Loma Linda School of Public Health. A question was asked about getting enough vitamin B12, and Dr. Harding answered it by saying, just walk through a barn and breathe the dust. You'll get all the B12 you need. In other words, God seems to have purposed that we get our vitamin B12 from working the soil, from breathing in its dust, including the animal waste products, all those microbes. So what about that whole microbiome thing? Does it do more than just produce vitamin B12? All right. Apparently the answer is a big old yes. And I'm just going to summarize it here. God created an unfathomably complex system of living organisms in the soil by which our health and very lives depend. It is a microecosystem or microbiome. When God made man out of the dust of the earth, that dust and its living microbiome became part of us. We were made from soil that was teeming with life. There are more of these microbes in our bodies than we have cells in our bodies. And they all have a purpose in maintaining our health and psyche. That microbiome varies according to where it is located in our bodies. Our gut, our skin, our lungs, etc. Each has its own variation of that microbiome. Healthy soil is also an antidepressant. Mycobacterium vaccae, a microorganism found in soil, lights up neurotransmitters that release serotonin, a mood-lifting hormone. But it's far more than just an antidepressant. It turns out that our gut microbiome is the seat of our immune systems, the seat. The healthier and more robust the diversity of our gut microbiome, the stronger is our immune system and our ability to resist all manner of disease, and the healthier we will be. But the health and diversity of our gut microbiome is dependent upon the health and diversity of the soil where we live. If the microbiome in the soil is healthy and robust, those that actually manually work that soil and or live and work outdoors on that soil and eat the food that grows in that soil or drink the water filtered through that soil, well water, will develop healthy, robust microbiomes, making them magnificently resistant to disease. Alternatively, those that live and work indoors in the soilless concrete cities, eating exclusively of commercially grown foods farmed in poisoned, lifeless soil, will develop a weakened and diminished gut microbiome, making them much more susceptible to all manner of disease. It means that if we expect to survive what's coming for us right now, in these end times, we need to get out of the cities into the rich soil of the unpoisoned country, grow our own organic food, live close to the earth, work in the sunlight, and sleep in the fresh air, the magnificent outdoor automatic healthcare system of Eden. We must stop killing our soil microbiome by the use of pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and man-made fertilizers. We adopt permaculture. We feed the soil veganically, just like in the forests. We stop over-farming, and get this, we let the land rest every 7 years, as God commanded. And now we know why. There's life in that soil. We must stop killing our gut microbiome by the use of pharmaceuticals, especially antibiotics, which kill off our microbiome even faster. We stop eating sugar and GMOs and junk foods that have been sprayed with pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides. All right, back to that statement about dyspeptics. Tell those who are sick that if the hosts of those who are dyspeptics and consumptives could turn farmers, they might overcome disease, dispense with drugs and doctors, and recover health. So now a farmer engages in useful labor in the sunlight and fresh air, but the number one defining characteristic of a farmer is that he works in the soil. It has been shown that there is indeed a relationship between dyspepsia and a decreased diversity and decreased population of the gastrointestinal microbiota. And the respiratory system also has its own version of the microbiome, which could have a bearing on TB patients, right? So, yes, working in the soil microbiome could help explain that quote about dyspeptics. And this may also help explain the change of attitude in the prison gardeners, as a healthy gut microbiome has also been shown to improve disposition. Yet even the healing properties in the microbiome doesn't seem to address the rapid cure of the woman with the persistent cough, because the gut microbiome takes a while to grow the balance back. So Is there yet something else in the soil that might explain that rapid cure? Something that provides a rapid healing action? Well, we have one more healing agency in Eden having to do with the soil. And it's my favorite Eden principle. And it's probably going to answer this question, that mystery. Eden's barefoot health principle. This principle was modeled for us in Eden. It wasn't stated in so many words, but God showed it to us. Okay. Can you still hear me? Yes. Okay. Day 6. Adam had just opened his eyes for the first time. Now, Adam was a notable exception. Instead of being spoken into existence like everything else that had just been made, he was formed out of the dust of the earth. God stood Adam up upon his bare feet onto the surface of the earth, and God did not place shoes upon his feet. Then, after Eve was created from Adam, God pronounced everything he had just made very good. Everything working together in harmony. Now, when God makes a notable exception during a creation event with the entire universe watching, he's expecting that we take note of that notable exception and understand what that exception means. When God formed man out of the dust of the earth, instead of speaking him into existence, he was telling all sentient beings that mankind, this new order of being, is part of their earth, the soil. Man is connected to it. He came from it. His food comes from it. His healing comes from it. And because of their sin, they would eventually return to that dust of the earth. Yet as powerful as B12 and the soil microbiome is for our healing, these were not enough. God created another powerful healing substance which cannot be seen, felt, smelled, or tasted, but it can be measured with man's scientific devices. God keeps this substance scattered all across the surface of the earth and waters. This substance is absorbed automatically, instantly, as man walks upon the earth barefooted. That substance is vital to our continued health. It has magnificent healing and protective properties that both prevent and reverse disease. This is why God did not provide mankind with shoes. Now, most of mankind has never even considered the notion that walking barefoot upon the earth was, in fact, an Eden health principle until recently. Scientists are calling this lost Eden principle earthing or grounding, and it is exactly what it sounds like. Just touching the ground grounds us electrically, as Adam and Eve were grounded. Scientists are calling this the most important health discovery of all time. The magnificent, unbelievable disease-reversing properties of grounding proves that assertion to be true. And I'm going to go through some of them. And what is this healing substance? It's so simple. God's solutions always are, right? The surface of the earth and waters are saturated with an almost infinite supply of negatively charged particles called electrons. That's it. That's all. The surface of the earth and waters carry a slightly negative charge. This is not new science. Scientists have known this for a very long time. Doctors have not known this, nor do they care, typically. The very ground we walk on is God's original anti-inflammatory, antioxidant healing agent. It is perfectly balanced, and its healing properties activate automatically and instantly when we simply touch the earth. Just put your hands in the soil. Just walk barefooted in the grass. The longer we are in contact with the negatively charged earth, the more consistent the healing. God's outdoor, automatic, free, effortless healthcare. All right, so if grounding is so anti-inflammatory, then why is mankind still plagued with chronic inflammatory diseases? We know what causes it, but what causes the chronic inflammatory diseases? Well, because modern man has separated himself from the earth and have become chronically electron deficient. Oh, excuse me, that wasn't a question. That's the answer. Because modern man has separated himself from the earth and have become chronically electron deficient. Who knew this was a thing? So how did we become electron deficient? Well, one, we left agriculture and moved indoors during the Industrial Revolution. You can pretty much figure out what the next one is, what the second one is. We lost our electrical connection to the earth when in the 1960s, synthetic rubber-soled shoes were invented. And now 95% of people on this planet walk insulated from the earth. Clint Ober is the man of science that rediscovered this lost Eden barefoot health principle. This is his opinion of synthetic shoes. He says, this was the single thing that happened that probably caused the proliferation of inflammation-related health disorders far and above anything else. This is the most destructive invention that man has ever made, the synthetic sole shoe. Wow. The solution to chronic inflammation has been right under our feet this whole time. All right, let's go to example number one of what happens when chronically inflamed sick people are finally grounded. This is Clint Ober. In 2000, Clint Ober, the discoverer of grounding, was asked by a friend if he would ground an elderly gentleman who was bedridden with advanced rheumatoid arthritis. The man's hands, elbows, and feet were grotesquely misshapen and inflamed. He was racked with pain and could hardly move, and then only very slowly. He was receiving comfort and at-home support from hospice, end-of-life care. Ober said he would come and see what could be done. He took 3 people to lift the man out of the bed in order to allow a conductive bed pad to be placed on it. The bed was then connected to a ground rod outside. About 10 days later, Ober received a phone call from the man asking if he could come over again. He said that a squirrel had eaten through the ground wire. How do you know that? Ober wanted to know. Well, I went out and saw it had been chewed through, the man said. Now, Ober was puzzled. How could a bedridden patient be up and about in his yard in a matter of a few days? Well, that's what I did, he said. I went out and saw it. Astonished, Ober drove up again. He found the man waiting for him, leaning against the front door. He said he was feeling better. And he was right about the wire. It had indeed been chewed by an animal. Ober replaced it. After the elderly patient had used the bed pad for 1 year, Ober learned from his friend that the man was much improved. He was doing household chores, tending to his fireplace, and even carrying firewood into the house from outside. The swelling had gone down. He was stronger, and he moved, talked, and expressed himself with new liveliness. The friend said that the once bedridden man had told him, I feel I no longer have disease in my body, just from touching the earth, folks. The man continued to sleep grounded every night for the next 5 years until he died. This remarkable turnaround reveals the largely unknown fact that the ground represents the biggest and best natural antioxidant and anti-inflammatory that exists. There are countless magnificent health recovery stories in the documentaries in the book. That was just one of them. And that one, this story, that was just tepid compared to many, many others. So how does grounding reverse inflammation? Well, I've excerpted the script from Earthing Movie, just a few paragraphs. And these scientists take turns talking as though it's one narrative. So Clint Ober speaking first, he says, Stephen Sinatra, who was a cardiologist from back east, was attending a convention, and we sat down with Stephen and told him the story, what I was doing. He said, well, if you're affecting pain, you need to be researching inflammation. He says, you don't have arthritis, you don't have cancer, you don't have all these health disorders. What you have is chronic inflammation. I want you to remember cancer, by the way. You don't have arthritis, you don't have cancer, you don't have all these health disorders. What you have is chronic inflammation. Well, chronic inflammation is different from acute inflammation. All right, continuing on, still Clint talking, he says, to me at the time, inflammation was you sprain an ankle and it balloons up and gets red and sore and it's inflamed. And he says, no, inflammation is different from that. Stephen Sinatra speaking. We have so much inflammation in the body and it comes out in illnesses. We go to a doctor with all these complaints, but a lot of it is silent inflammation, including my specialty, heart disease. Heart disease is an inflammatory process. So how do we reduce inflammation, he asks? Here's how. Now it's James Oshman, PhD, biophysicist, author of Down to Earth, is speaking. He says, the most abundant protein in the body is collagen. It's the building block of our tissues, and we have gazillions of collagen molecules in our body. They are all embedded in a gel. This gel has a huge surface area, and it absorbs electrons and releases them when you have injury. It stores it. Clint Ober's talking. He says, inflammation is produced by neutrophils, which is a white blood cell. You have an injury, you have a damaged cell. And so these white blood cells come over and they encapsulate the damaged cell and they release reactive oxygen species, which rip electrons from the damaged cell, and that destroys the damaged cell. Interesting. James Oshman speaking. White blood cells release free radicals at the injury site, which chew up any pathogens, bacteria, or dead cells. They clear the area. It's called the repair field. It's the place that needs to be repaired. Without earthing, some of the free radicals that are released into the repair field leak into the surrounding tissues. This is where the rubber meets the road. Clint Ober says, if there's not enough free electrons there to reduce the remaining radicals, they are going to steal an electron from a healthy cell and in the process, damage it. Then the message goes out to the immune system and another neutrophil does the same thing, eliminates that. So then you end up with a chain reaction. James Oshman speaking. And this can create chronic inflammation, silent inflammation. You may not even know it's there, and it continues for years. Clint speaking. If inflammation is the cause of all these health disorders, then I know that not enough grounding is the cause of inflammation, because if the body is grounded, you cannot have inflammation. If that's true, that's amazing. I am convinced that God's intervening hand is at work in directing us back to this lost healing principle of Eden. I believe these are to be counteragents to the worldwide poisoning of mankind that's currently happening to us right now. Therefore, we are to live by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God, that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. Notice that grounding is God's solution for excess free radicals and inflammation, not man's. So since 1956, we have bombarded with the constant threat of free radicals. Oh, bad, bad, bad. Take this potion, take that potion, eat this food. And we have been told that supplements and foods rich in oxidants were the solution. Well, supplement manufacturers made a lot of money from that idea, didn't they? Turns out foods containing antioxidants were just one of nature's backup systems. Grounding seems to be the primary system for dealing with free radicals and chronic inflammation. All we had to do was keep ourselves connected to the earth and stick to our original plant-based diet. This explanation of the science of grounding is very abbreviated and simplified, and thus somewhat lacking. Clint Ober has a much more elaborate explanation in his book, but it's more than 2 pages long, pages 61 and 62. Nevertheless, I prefer to emphasize the results, the recovery stories, rather than scientific theories, mostly because scientific theories tend to change over time. The results don't. The earthinginstitute.net. I'm just giving a tiny little introduction to earthing in this presentation. So I refer you to the voluminous scientific research and success stories or testimonials that have been gathered at this website, earthinginstitute.net. And they are fabulous. Clint Ober is the absolute expert on this topic. This is the man of science who rediscovered this Eden healing principle and brought it to the world. The first image is of the documentary on grounding called The Earthing Movie on YouTube. There's a second documentary out there equally as good called The Grounded on YouTube. The second image that you're seeing here is of Clint Ober's book on grounding and earthing. Now, without these scientists realizing they were doing it, they were pointing people back to the lost barefoot health principle of Eden and God's magnificent outdoor automatic health care system. Now, some well-meaning, sincere Christians have rejected this healing principle because the words grounding and earthing sound to them like New Age terminology. That's unfortunate in that they miss out on the healing benefits. So, if grounding is truth, it can stand scrutiny, absolutely. Test every spirit. But just because New Agers may try to attach their particular spin on earthing doesn't make earthing mysticism. God's rainbow was also hijacked and turned into a symbol for the homosexual community. Does that then mean that God's promise concerning that rainbow is no longer binding? Grounding has been accused of being New Age, spiritualism, pantheism, worshiping the earth, and worshiping Satan by well-meaning, sincere people. Yet the human body is the most complex electrochemical device on planet Earth. It is filled with electrical circuitry. The brain, the nervous system, the muscles are very heartbeats. And electrical devices need to be grounded. So, to say that grounding these priceless living electrical bodies is New Age, spiritualism, pantheism, worshiping the earth, and worshiping Satan is to say that grounding your home's electrical outlets and devices is New Age, spiritualism, pantheism, worshiping the earth, and worshiping Satan. Folks, it's just basic electrical wiring 101. We ground the expensive electrical devices to prevent problems. Now, this science is in harmony with the principles of Eden. We have been told those who take the written word as their counselor will find in science an aid to understand God. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. God surrounded Adam and Eve on every side with nature's automatic healing agencies. Even that big star in the sky 92 million miles away was designed with magnificent healing properties for us. So, is it really any surprise that God would also place magnificent healing agencies right under our own feet without us even having to think about it? Well, let's go to another testimony here. Neither my wife nor myself snore anymore since we grounded ourselves at night. And apparently that's a really big thing, common. Next testimony. I believe that this is from Randy Haynes. He's a medical missionary in Cherryville, Canada, British Columbia. I believe that getting my hands and feet in the soil while gardening, as well as lots of sunlight, were the key things that got me over hyperthyroidism about 8 years ago. By the way, I'm going to say this. Here's a question for you. It's actually a question. What branch of healthcare has proven to be far and away the most indispensable and effective in preventing and reversing disease? The answer, organic farming. Organic farmers. Randy and Beverly Haynes are Christian organic farmers in British Columbia. And from my perspective, that makes them the most effective, practical, down-to-earth medical missionaries I know. Indispensable healthcare, organic gardening. All right. Here's the next testimony. Just a second. I'm going to get a little drink. Sorry, my voice is kind of raw because I gave an hour and a half presentation on the sun cure to Australia just before I started this presentation with you folks. So I'm being careful with my voice. Okay, another one. This is Elizabeth S. She gave this comment in the Med Missionary that we were talking about grounding. She says, our Creator knows what we need and has placed it in nature for us. Simply earthing regularly is anti-inflammatory, pain relieving, yes, pain relieving, peace giving, and nutrition boosting, plus so much more. My dad, who is 90 now, has earthed regularly for several years, and it has helped regulate his arrhythmia and boost his mood. I feel so much better after I do my earthing. I feel less pain and more overall balance in my whole being. Praise God for giving us what we need, even in the dirt. Grounding is not just the best anti-inflammatory. It is also the best natural blood thinner without the deadly side effects that come from pharmaceuticals. Wait a minute. That cannot possibly be right, because we are told that water is the best blood thinner. And you know who said that? Well, that's true. We were told that. Therefore, grounding must be one of God's backup systems for thinning the blood. Water thins the blood by diluting the blood naturally. So how does grounding thin the blood? Electrons from the earth enter the body and coat the red blood cells so that the cells repel each other, and then they cannot clump, and the blood viscosity goes down. It's easier for the heart to pump the blood pressure goes down, all kinds of cardiovascular issues, they go away. Now, just because they make these claims doesn't necessarily mean it's true, right? We test every spirit. Is there evidence for this? Turns out there is video evidence of this phenomena. Let's watch that. Listen very carefully because the sound level on this clip is very quiet. All right, let's see if this works.
Today, we're going to see how the earthing or the grounding affects your blood. We're going to take our blood, put it on the slide, microscopic slide, and take a look. As you can see, all her red blood cells are stacked up. This is called a stacked up cell. And see, let's go see if the earthing can help improve a little. They're actually earthing right now, and they're just starting to ground. So we'll see them back in 10 minutes. Let's see how the earthing or the grounding has affected her blood. Okay. As you can see, the blood, before and after the earthing is obviously changed. So after you do the earthing, the blood can circulate better. This is a good example.
Okay. This brings to mind the quote from the Bible, "We are fearfully and wonderfully made." When we are not grounded, blood can clump together. When we are grounded, our blood does not clump together. Think post-surgery, by the way. Blood flow is faster and easier. Blood pressure goes down, which relieves strain on the heart, and oxygenation is better and easier and faster. Thus, healing is faster. This video also demonstrated the principle that we get stocked up on electrons when we touch the earth. We need not be constantly touching the earth. The electrons are stored in our collagen until needed. You saw in that video that lady simply grounded for 10 minutes, then went back inside and her blood was tested while she was again ungrounded. Yet the red blood cells continued to repel each other, even though she was now ungrounded. That's because her body restocked itself with electrons. All right, now the next healing story is from a testimonial from the comments section on YouTube under the Earthing movie. Whoops, here it is.
Today we're
the quote is this: "I fractured a vertebrae in my neck when I was a kid. Didn't heal properly, and it became massively arthritic. I have had chronic pain and headaches for 30 years. I got a simple mat to put my feet on when I'm sitting, and I have been using a grounded pillowcase to sleep on. After about the third night of using the pillowcase, I noticed that my neck appeared to be completely healed. This is magnificent. The pain was completely gone, and my range of motion increased easily by at least 20%, and with zero pain. For me, this was nothing short of miraculous." I believe that. God has had this all figured out from the very beginning, and we're learning now how to get back to this. We're sharing our puzzle pieces like what we're doing right now. He continues on, he says, "I am completely addicted to earthing. EMFs. There are boatloads of science and wonderful health recovery stories in Clint Ober's documentary, book, and website. But this is just a tiny little introduction to grounding, as I've stated. But this particular benefit that I'm about to talk about needs to be told. Clint Ober discovered that as long as we are physically grounded, we are protected from the dangerous, relentless bombardment of electromagnetic fields, like all those devices you're looking at. Clint Ober's experimentation on himself on this is fascinating, and you can read the full story, how he discovered it, on pages 34 and 35 of his book, Earthing, 2nd edition. Eden's barefoot health principle is clear evidence that God has had this whole thing figured out from the beginning. He has made provisions for the terrible emergencies of disease, even in this modern electrical age. And I believe God is not slack. He knows of the toxicities and deficiencies of this age. He has made provisions for it all. And he knows what governments and pharmacare and Satan's minions are doing to us without our knowledge or consent. All those horrible things that are finding their way into the blood. Do you think God's made provisions for those? Provisions would certainly be a whole lot easier if we avoided what we've been told to avoid. All right. I had just finished my section on grounding in this presentation when I was putting it together, when I received an email. And here is what it said. I watched your video on tuberculosis and healing with sunlight. I heard you talk about sun healing bones. Well, I have osteoporosis in the back and hip and osteoarthritis in my knees, which I'm supposed to have replaced soon. I've been praying for God to show me another way. But what can I do if I'm in a cold area in winter? I've told myself I would get outside this winter, but it's been way too cold. So I told her about the classic exercise and a proper diet to prevent and reverse these things. But I did not find that very satisfying. So I looked to see if Clint Ober might have something to say about grounding and osteoporosis and inflammation, osteoarthritis. I found a page on his website, earthinginstitute.net, on osteoporosis, which I included in my answer to her. Excuse me. There were 4 healing stories. I'll just retell 2 of them. This is from a woman 56 in England in 2015. I broke my back a few years ago and was, at the time, diagnosed with osteoporosis. I refused biophosphates and calcium and was too lazy to take up weightlifting. However, I had my bones scanned recently and the results showed a remarkable improvement. I no longer have osteoporosis because I have been grounding for about a year. Okay, that's really fabulous. Next one. 65-year-old retired nurse from Indio, California. When I first began grounding, I did not have the immediate results that I have read about others having. In fact, I felt worse. I had more fatigue and pain. I have an autoimmune condition, ankylosing spondylitis, chronic pain, as well as migraines. You encouraged me to hang in there, that it would get better. I continued grounding at night, and during the day when I laid down, I have been grounding almost 3 months. The changes have been very gradual. When I started, I was walking 20 minutes a day and struggling to do that due to overwhelming fatigue and pain. I have osteoporosis, and my doctor has been pushing me to go on medication for it. Well, of course he has. I have resisted because of all the side effects associated with these drugs. I have been taking supplements to strengthen my bones, though my doctor said that it won't make much difference. I was on supplements before my bone scan 2 years ago, and my results showed my bones density was less. Really? I had read that grounding may help with osteoporosis, so that was my motivation. I kept putting off my bone scan to allow more time to ground. Then my doctor refused to treat me any longer if I didn't get my repeat scan and go on meds. So I had my scan. I was shocked to learn that I no longer have osteoporosis. Needless to say, I am a firm believer in the benefits of grounding after only 3 months. Can't wait to see how much better I get as time goes on. Well, this is me talking now. When I combined these stories with all the other historical healing stories of nature in all my presentations, I realized something very important about God's Eden healthcare system. And I've alluded to it a couple of times in this presentation. God has built into nature and our bodies redundant, overlapping backup systems. Sunlight prevents and reverses osteoporosis. Exercise prevents and reverses osteoporosis. Eden's diet prevents and reverses osteoporosis. Grounding prevents and reverses osteoporosis. Just touching the earth is the greatest anti-inflammatory, anti-EMF blood thinner on earth, literally on earth. It cannot get any easier than that. Just show up. Just standing there outside on the earth, your health is improving. Same thing for sunlight. Same thing for fresh air. Talk about simple, easy, automatic. Imagine if we combine all these 4 healing agents into one purposeful, consistent health recovery effort for ourselves and for our patients. The speed of healing would be unparalleled in this age. Wait a minute. This looks familiar. Doesn't this look familiar to you? These four things as a package. Where have we seen this somewhere before? Haven't we seen this? Wait a minute. I think it's got a name. I know. It's called gardening. Just like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Application for us? If you are determined to help your patients overcome disease, then get them gardening, barefoot and in skimpy clothes. It's now making sense, isn't it, how hardened, violent prisoners were turned into sane, functioning members of society simply by gardening in the soil, fresh air, and sunlight. And how it was that her chronic, relentless cough was almost immediately eliminated after getting outside with her hands in the soil of a strawberry garden. And now her two strong statements about healing outdoors make more sense as well. By outdoor exercise and working in the soil, men and women will regain their health. Drugs will be discarded. And tell those who are sick that if the hosts of those who are dyspeptics and consumptives could turn farmers or gardeners, they might overcome disease, dispense with drugs and doctors, and recover health. God's health care system is magnificent. He has placed our health care in the simple serenity of a garden. God's magnificent outdoor automatic health care system. God never intended that nature be a mere afterthought in our health care. It was to be our primary health care. Man-made therapies weren't even discussed in the Garden of Eden. No more placing mortal man's medical theories and therapies above God's specified healing agencies. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. Therefore, we require a healthcare system that is equally fearfully and wonderfully made. God's magnificent, outdoor, automatic, effortless, free healthcare system. And the dirt was just the beginning, folks. Parts 2 and 3 address more of those magnificent, automatic healing agencies of nature. Part 2 is acclimating to outdoor healing. Amazing stories of history telling how different people, different cultures acclimated to outdoor living and the fabulous results. Part 3, treating cancer Eden's way. That treatment of cancer Eden's way is not what we've been led to believe. Treating cancer is not what we've been led to believe. God's way is always, always, always superior. Okay, folks, that is the end of that presentation. Let me shut this off. Stop the share. Okay, we back.
Thank you so much. Wow, powerful program, brother. So I have some questions as usual.
Thank you.
So did you ever read how long do a person need to be out in the soil to breathe in enough B12?
I haven't come across that. Well, yes, we did. Dr. Mervyn Harding, he just said, just walk through a barn and breathe the dust, and you'll get all the B12 you need. So apparently it's pretty quick.
Wow. So you are not using any B12 supplements?
No, I just thought it was nuts that if we start eating the way God told us to eat, that we're going to need man-made supplements. No, the missing ingredient was not supplements. It was getting into the earth, working in the earth.
Yeah, so you have proof yourself that just working in the earth, you gives you enough B12.
I'm quoting Dr. Harding. That's the proof I'm using.
Okay. So, they say that if you leave some of the soil of the vegetables, that there are some B12 there.
Well, if you can breathe it, you can certainly eat it too.
So, but on the other hand, we are told to wash vegetables very good, so get off all the
I know. It's a mystery, but then explain to us, someone here, explain to us why God put this instinct, this natural hardwired thing into little babies. They put everything in the mouth. Walking on the ground, they pick it, they touch, they put everything in the mouth. I think God was building up the microbiome that way.
Right.
The balance, I don't know.
Right. So also, how long did it take? You said that your wife and you are not snoring anymore because you are living on these grounding pillows, right? So
Yeah.
how long did you lay on the pillows before you stopped snoring?
Happened immediately.
Okay, well, praise the Lord. So you are saying that, I mean, since grounding is important and some people still are living in towns, they have not, I think many people today are thinking about, praying about it. Maybe they're alone. They maybe don't have enough money to move and all these things. But when you come to grounding, it's just as good to have a grounding pad as, going in the soil.
I've heard stories. It's not as good. It still works, but it's not quite as good as being in the earth itself.
So I don't know if anyone else have questions,
Or comments.
Yeah, or comments. Maybe you can go back to the first slide when you were showing the first slide. I actually had some questions from the first slide.
Oh, you mean with all the principles in it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Let me try that again.
So meanwhile, you are getting the other 16, I believe it was. So live, work, and sleep outdoor. But so I'm thinking about this sleep outdoor thing. I'm trying to think how to do it in the winter, even in the summer, because of rain, and you just maybe have a little. How would you suggest to do that?
We do what we can with what's in our hand. At minimum, you keep a window cracked, an inch, 2, 3, whatever you can acclimate to. In warmer times, you can stay in a tent. And I have stories of people at the sanitarium who cured themselves all winter long by living in a tent out there.
If you want to speak,
Yes.
Right.
yeah,
I've seen those videos. It's really so much power there. So let's see. So drink pure, cool water. Would you suggest that people have water cleansing systems now in these days?
Yeah. Hey, I think Mara had a question. Is that what I was seeing?
Yeah. Hello, Werner, our gardener. So, yeah, did you listen, Werner?
Yes, not
Yeah.
not all of it, but we've been involved in that for very little and it is very true that the microbes which we receive from the soil, but also from the air, that walking through the barn is maybe a little far-fetched, because you also can have the kind of dust which then is not good for your lungs. So you do need clean air with the microbe particles. Same thing in the soil. If you have very sandy soil and the wind blows it up and you have a high concentration on those particles, that they are then destructive for your lungs, for example. But as a whole, especially the clay particles, they are really helpful, and we're continuously against the thought of the soil really is healing. As you explained the part with the children in the soil, And this is very true. It's very beneficial. Now that with the shoes that we cannot be grounded, it has much to do with where we're standing in wintertime. It's not easy to ground in wintertime in the north. In the south, we can go barefoot, or we can have leather shoes, yes, leather soles, who have a little bit more grounding, but they don't ground very much. Actually, you can test how much grounding you have when you go onto an electric fence. And I just hold on to the fence, and then I know very quickly how much grounding I have, and it really works. Yes.
Okay. Very good.
So is that saying that it helps if you are, yeah, it helps when you are sensitive to EMF, right? You were mentioning that, John.
Oh, yes. What's the actual question? I'm sorry. Or was that?
That the grounding is helping if you are sensitive to EMF.
Yes, according to the books and the documentaries and etc. Yes.
Yeah. So what you were saying.
I don't seem to. I got sensitive.
So Werner, if I understood you right, you said if you were grounding, you would not react if you took your hand off this electrical fence. Is that what you were saying?
I was saying depends what kind of insulation is between your foot and the ground.
Okay.
So if it's a synthetic, you hardly feel, or you do not feel the electric pulse.
Okay.
But as soon as you have a leather shoes or even a little bit moisture on the leather, it is greatly increased the exchange of the electromagnetic field.
And then you were talking about clay particles. Is it right that having a little clay would be okay? I mean, to drink water with clay?
Yeah, mostly in hydrotherapy or where we use clay, it is not so much the drinking part. It is more immersing yourself in the clay particles, which then take out the poisons. But for example, the charcoal is built on a similar concept with the many little platelets who take the positive charges or the charges from the poison and hang on to it and take them out of the body. So in that sense, it is very helpful with the clay. And I think the clay particles would also be helpful, but there we would have to know what the poison is. Is it positive or is it negative? So, because the soil is negative.
Yeah, they talk
negatively charged.
They talk much about bentonite clay, that it would be good for us to take, especially if we are detoxing, doing so that you take just a quarter of a teaspoon every day to actually to bind the toxins to the clay so it gets out. What I have learned. So you don't have any diseases, Werner? You're out in the soil so much.
Right, but I just puzzled while you were, what's your name again, John?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, John, you were talking about that exchanging of the electrolytes, you could call them. When I lay down on the ground, which is moist and cold, I do get like it's called a nerve pinch or a inflammation of the nerve. And that is, I think, when it is too much and the temperature is not correct. I can lay down on a warm soil, which no problem. But as soon as I have to lay under a car or fix a car and you have cold, moist conditions, then you actually can attract nerve diseases or pinching your nerve. So there is inflammation at that point. So we do have to balance. So we do have to know when to do it the right way.
So then I get another.
Interesting.
Yeah, sorry, John.
No, that's all.
Then my next question is, when you walk on grass, it's cold, right? I mean, at least in Norway. The grass is not warm. So you have to then walk on soil because that is probably warmer than grass.
No, I don't think that makes a big difference. No. The grass it has the roots in the soil and the grass is above. The conductivity is about the same on grass or in the soil.
Yeah, I got something here. In the documentary, one of the documentaries that I mentioned, it shows a man, I think he's the author of the documentary, grounding in Alaska in the winter under the house, kind of buries himself in the soil. So far, what it seems like is that different people react differently to different things, because he cured himself that way, and others were doing the same sort of thing. So it's interesting what you've said. That I would not have known that some people are affected by the cold like that, as far as grounding goes. So that's a new element. Thank you for bringing that up.
You have something else you want to share, Werner? Werner?
Yes, I just would like to say very good work you have done, John. Very good research and gathering the research, and I think that's the way to go. We just work with a presentation now also on the effects of the poisons which we have in the soil and then in the food we eat, and that is greatly connected to what you just presented now. Good job.
Thank you. Did you say you have created such a presentation?
I just 2 days ago I received a call if I could give a presentation like that for tomorrow night. So I'm working on it right now.
Oh, okay.
So maybe, Werner, you would like to present that on over Zoom too, and we could invite John.
Yeah.
There are several pioneers in this area. Some of them also been in the religious realm where they take God's creation and give credit to that effect, just like you have done now too in this presentation.
Excellent. Good to hear that.
Mm-hmm. Good. Was nice to participate with your presentation here. Very good.
Yes, and I love that he's speaking with fire.
Yes.
So, yeah. So anyone else have some questions, comments? So then I just want to thank you again, John. So if there, maybe you would like to have a closing prayer with us?
Yeah. Okay. Father God, we thank you for all that you've presented here for us, all these truths, and your magnificent willingness to bless us when we use your healing agencies. And so we ask that you continue again to direct us in your work in the revival of this health reform movement, sir. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.